So the director of national intelligence is now just popping up at FBI raids. It's giving middle manager who heard there were free donuts in the break room kind of energy. And look, I need everyone to pause their doom scrolling and internalize what we're actually seeing here. The person tasked with wrangling 18 intelligence agencies, quite literally the firewall standing between us and foreign spies, cyber warfare, actual existential threats. She's out here standing in a parking lot in Georgia. She's getting photographed in an SUV packed with ballot boxes like she's filming a gritty reboot of Cops that no one asked for. And don't think for a second that this is just some rogue mission where Tulsi Gabbard went full Colonel Kurtz in the Atlanta suburbs. No, 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 no. See, according to her own letter to Congress, pinned only because Democrats were collectively screaming, "What in the absolute hell are you doing?" She was there because the president told her to be. Let that sink in. The President of the United States specifically directed his top spy chief to go supervise an FBI raid on a county he lost in the 2020 election. A county that he's been obsessing over like a jilted ex for over 5 years. And then, because the universe apparently loves a really good punchline, she calls Trump, puts him on speakerphone with the agents, and lets him give them a pep talk. Imagine for a moment being one of those FBI agents, and President Trump calls in to give you all the accolades and attaboys and all of that for investigating his own personal grudges. Former senior FBI officials are describing the vibe as unanimous disgust. One source calls it performative and a total middle finger to the rule of law. But don't worry, guys, because Deputy AG Todd Blanche is on the case. And he says he loves it. Because, Trump using the actual FBI to be his own personal cheer and hit squad is apparently great. So buckle up, y'all. Today we are dissecting Tulsi Gabbard, the woman who pulled off the most cynical political parkour in modern history. And not even kidding. Do you guys remember when she was standing for Bernie Sanders? Like, this woman went from Bernie Sanders supporter to Fox News and now to DNI. We're talking about how in just 1 week, she showed the world that the entire intelligence community has been rebranded as a support group. For who? Easy. The one man who still can't get over the fact that he lost Georgia by 11,779 votes, to be exact. But before we get back to the collapse of Western civilization, let's just do some really quick housekeeping here. So you can, always find me when the internet inevitably goes dark. If you want to find me on the gram and the book, you can do that. If you want to see visual receipts of everything, follow on Instagram at We Saw the Devil Podcast. If you're still hanging out on Facebook for whatever reason, I'm also there. We Saw the Devil, website wesawthedevil.com. If you want to slide into the inbox, you can do that as well. A tip, a correction, just want to tell me how much you hate my tone or my voice. You can email me at info@wesawthedevil.com. I promise to read it eventually. And Patreon. Look, if you want to support independent journalism or independent podcasts and buy me the caffeine required to stay this cynical, then please head over to Patreon. You'll get those sweet, sweet ad-free episodes because I know that you are just as tired of hearing about the high-tech mattresses as I am of hearing about them as well. But beyond that, y'all, let's just go ahead and set the scene because the details here are absolutely wild. And by wild, I mean straight out of a banana republic. So this past Wednesday, January 28th, 2026, FBI agents rolled up to the Fulton County elections hub near Atlanta with a search warrant. They proceeded to haul out 700 boxes of ballots and materials from the 2020 election. Now, let's pause here for our reality check. First, Georgia already certified these results. They did a hand recount. Most of you recall that. They also did a machine recount. They audited the audit. Courts, including those with judges that Trump himself handpicked, throughout the lawsuits. Now, second, it is now 2026. We are talking about an election that happened over 5 years ago. It has been litigated, and adjudicated more than basically any event since the OJ trial. And yet, the FBI is acting like they're going to find a smoking gun tucked between some dusty file folders. But Tulsi Gabbard, again, our director of national intelligence, was physically there as well. She wasn't back in DC monitoring things like a normal person. She herself, she was in Atlanta at the elections office getting photographed in SUVs loaded with ballots. And let me explain why this is completely fucking unhinged. The DNI's job is foreign intelligence. Again, let me say that again. Foreign intelligence. Her statutory function is to protect us from Russia, China, or terrorists. It is not to do ride-alongs on FBI warrants at local county offices. There is no universe, no history book, and no legal manual where the nation's top spy supervising a domestic election dispute is considered normal. And when the press conference started asking questions today, because obviously, I mean, everyone is pretty much asking WTAF, Deputy AG Todd Blanche told CNN, quote, "I don't know why the director was there." Really, Todd? The Deputy AG has no clue why the DNI is playing Special Agent Tulsi at a high-profile raid? Really? But then he claimed that she's a key part of election integrity. Now, riddle me this, regardless of which side you're on. Since when is the U.S. intelligence community, the people who read foreign intercepts, in charge of local election integrity? That's for state officials. But Tulsi didn't just wander in out of curiosity. She was there because Trump told her to be. In her letter to Congress, she admitted with her whole chest that her presence was requested by the president. She claims it's part of her broad authority to analyze malign influence. Translation of that is the president sent his head spy to babysit a raid on a county he's been mad at since 2020. And she went. And the cherry on top of this bullshit Sunday is that the next day, Tulsi visited the FBI's Atlanta office and decided to give the president a call. She put him on speakerphone so he could tell the agents they were doing great work investigating the 2020 election. Sit with that. Like, genuinely sit with it. The president, who was literally indicted in Georgia for election interference. Fact check that, y'all. Trump was indicted in Georgia for election interference. This same man is now personally congratulating federal agents for helping him relitigate the very election he lost and claimed was stolen. Former FBI officials are understandably losing their goddamn minds. One called it performative and a total middle finger to the rule of law. If any charges ever come from this, and I've pretty much reached the point now where I'm like, don't hold your breath, defense attorneys are going to have a field day with this interference. The kicker, though, is that while this was going down, Tulsi, AG Pam Bondi, and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem were all supposed to speak at a conference for secretaries of state. Election officials from both parties were waiting for an explanation. None of them showed up. None of them. Tulsi cited scheduling conflicts. Imagine being a Republican Secretary of State in Ohio or Florida, watching the feds raid a county to settle a 5-year-old grudge. And the administration can't even be bothered to show their faces. That's the integrity we're working with now. But wait, there's more. Because Tulsi Gabbard wasn't just out there doing election integrity cosplay in Georgia. She's also apparently been sitting on a whistleblower complaint about herself for 8 months. The Wall Street Journal broke the story, and it's got all the hallmarks of a spy novel, except it's actually real, and it's happening inside of our government right now. So here's the deal. A U.S. intelligence official, identity unknown, agency unknown, but clearly someone with a very interesting day job, filed a complaint about Gabbard's conduct. The allegations are so highly classified that they've reportedly been locked inside of a safe. One official said revealing them could cause, direct quote, grave damage to national security. It even involves another agency and raises concerns of executive privilege. It's basically the VIP section of government secrets. And let's talk about how this is actually supposed to work. You see, under federal law, the process is actually very simple. 1, an employee files a complaint. 2, the inspector general has 2 weeks to decide if it's credible. 3, if it is, they have 1 week to hand it over to Congress. That's it. 2 weeks plus 1 week is 3 weeks. This complaint has been gathering dust for 8 months. The whistleblower's attorney is Andrew Bakaj. Pardon me if I'm butchering his last name. If that name rings a bell, though, it's because he's the same guy who represented the whistleblower during the first Trump impeachment, the Zelensky phone call guy. Bakaj knows the rule book, and he's out here saying that there is absolutely zero legal justification for hiding this from Congress for 3/4 of a year. Gabbard's office, of course, has perfectly logical explanations. They claim the IG already looked at it and found the allegations baseless and politically motivated. But the IG's office is making things murky, basically saying they found some parts not credible, but couldn't reach a determination on others. So, no, it's not exactly a clean bill of health. And the excuse for the delay? The Kafka-esque masterpiece? Well, her spokesperson, Olivia Coleman, says the complaint is just so classified that it makes the review process substantially more difficult. Take in that logic for a second. They're saying that they can't tell the congressional intelligence committees, the people who literally have the highest security clearances in our government, specifically to oversee shit like this, because the information is just too secret. We can't tell the people whose job it is to know secrets about the secret things you're doing because they're too secret. Okay, Tulsi, that definitely sounds like a transparent, law-abiding process and not at all like a convenient way to just bury a scandal until everyone forgets about it. Because that is the common theme that I'm seeing in this administration. So much shit happens on a daily basis that it's overload. And that is a tactic, right? Overload the media, overload with a bunch of crazy shit happening, and then eventually people will forget about it. They've tried it with the Epstein files until this most recent dump that I covered in the last episode. I mean, I don't know how many day-to-day people are going to give a shit about Tulsi Gabbard and everything that's happening here, but guys, this is the big story right now. Like, yes, I understand the importance of the Epstein files and honoring victims and getting monsters out of government. Absolutely. But this is the story that you should be following. And you'll learn why at the end of the episode based on another interview Trump did today, which I will actually be playing for you. But let's, stop and take a step back and talk about how Tulsi Gabbard ended up here to begin with. Because her political trajectory is the kind of thing you'd expect from a character in a low budget film. Like, not an actual real person who currently holds the keys to America's entire intelligence apparatus. Back in 2012, Tulsi was the Democratic Party's shiny new resume builder. First Hindu American in Congress? Check. First Samoan American? Check. Iraq War vet? Check. She was the progressive, anti-war darling of Hawaii. I loved her. By 2016, she was a vice chair of the DNC until she dumped them to give Bernie Sanders a nominating speech, accusing the party of being a Hillary Clinton fan club. At that point, the Bernie bros basically wanted to put her on a stamp, and other things too, probably. But then came her 2020 presidential run. Most people only remember it for that one debate where she performed a public execution of Kamala Harris's record as a prosecutor. I mean, I gave it a standing ovation. She absolutely eviscerated Kamala on everything from marijuana convictions to blocking evidence. It was brutal, it was effective, and it ensured that while Tulsi never pulled above single digits, that she was officially the person who liked to kick her own party's rising stars in the ass. After she dropped out, she endorsed Joe Biden. She got snubbed by the 2020 convention and apparently decided, well, if I can't be the lead singer, I'm joining the other band. And the vibe started shifting. It shifted with her voting present during Trump's first impeachment, a move that managed to annoy everyone simultaneously, but it also signaled that she was officially checking out of Team Blue. After leaving Congress in 2021, she basically moved into the Fox News green room, like, probably had 3 hots and a cot at Fox News HQ. She became Tucker Carlson's favorite guest host and a CPAC regular, suddenly discovering that her true passion was complaining about wokeness. By October of 2022, she officially quit the Democrats with a statement that was basically a Mad Libs of right wing bullshit grievances. She ranted about an elitist cabal of warmongers, and my personal favorite, anti white racism. Yes, you heard me correctly. The first Samoan American, Hindu American woman in Congress was suddenly worried about that. And that was basically the final step of her Pokemon style evolution. And since then, she has been a Republican talking head. She spent the 2022 midterms in endorsing J.D. Vance and Carrie Lake. By August of 2024, she was officially endorsing Donald Trump. And that's the leap. She joined his transition team alongside RFK Jr., creating a sort of island of misfit Democrats for people who desperately need to feel relevant. In October of 2024, she officially joined the GOP, calling it, and I'm not kidding or exaggerating, quote, the party of equality that fought to end slavery. Okay, Tulsi. The party that ended slavery in 1865 and has spent the last century trying to make sure the descendants of those people have the hardest possible time voting. Absolutely, absolutely great historical catch there. But we're here now in 2026. The woman who was standing Bernie Sanders and Medicare for All not even 10 years ago is now running 18 intelligence agencies and personally supervising FBI raids to help the president prove he didn't actually lose Georgia 5 years ago. And look, ideological evolution is one thing. This is a complete structural inversion. She went from calling the military industrial complex the enemy to running the surveillance state. The charitable view here, though, is that she had a political awakening. The realistic view is that she saw a shortcut to power that the Democrats weren't giving her, and she took the exit ramp. And this wouldn't be a discussion about Tulsi Gabbard if we didn't talk about Russia. And I've been holding off because I wanted to kind of lay the foundation a little bit first, the Fulton County raid, the whistleblower drama, the political parkour, but we can't talk about Tulsi Gabbard without addressing the giant vodka-soaked bear in the room. In 2019, if you guys remember this, because this is one of those moments that made everyone take a deep breath, Hillary Clinton suggested that Russians were grooming someone in the Democratic primary. She didn't name names, but she didn't have to. The nesting doll fit a little too well. Tulsi responded by calling Hillary the personification of rot. I mean, not gonna lie, impressive soundbite, right? Like, that's spicy. Well done, Tulsi, on that insult. But the problem is that Tulsi has spent the last few years making Hillary look like a fortune teller. Look at her media diet. Former aides say that she was obsessed with sharing articles from RT, Russia Today. The Kremlin's official alternative facts department. She wasn't just some random aunt on Facebook. She was a sitting member of Congress in the House Foreign Affairs Committee. She had access to actual classified intelligence. Yet she was apparently getting her truth from a source that the U.S. intelligence community calls the Kremlin's principal propaganda outlet. As a retired intelligence officer put it, it's either naivete, collusion, pick your poison, but they all taste like poison. And let's also talk about Syria. In 2017, Tulsi took a secret spiritual trip to Damascus to meet Bashar al-Assad for 3 hours. Yes, that Assad, the guy who gasses his own people while Russia cheers from the sidelines. She came back and said she was skeptical that he used chemical weapons, despite the UN, the US, and basically anyone with a functioning nose and brain saying otherwise. Her own colleagues were so disgusted that they were afraid to let her near Syrian defectors, worried she'd leak their locations back to the dictator. Think about that, you guys. Her own co-workers in Congress thought that she might get a witness killed, if not many witnesses killed. The evolution of her views on Russia is also a masterpiece of wait, what? 2014, Russia invades Crimea. Tulsi demands stiffer, more painful sanctions on Russia. 3 years later, in 2017, suddenly it's all the US and NATO's fault for provoking poor, misunderstood Vladimir Putin. 2022, Russia invades Ukraine again. Tulsi tweets that the war could have been avoided if we just respected Russia's legitimate security concerns. It's literally the Russian playbook translated into English and tweeted with a flower behind the ear. You know what I mean? That kind of vibe. Russian state TV loved it so much that they started calling her Russia's girlfriend. If Moscow gives you a pet name, you've probably fucked up somewhere along the line. And then there's the biolabs. Remember the undeniable facts she shared about the US funded biolabs in Ukraine? It was a debunked conspiracy theory that started on RT and ended up on her feed. That's how Russian disinformation works. They plant the seeds, find an American patriot to water those seeds, and then they use them as proof that the story is real. Even at her confirmation hearing last year, when asked point blank if Edward Snowden was a traitor, she choked. A sitting senator asked the woman who wanted to run our intelligence agencies if a man who stole secrets and fled to Russia was a traitor, and she didn't say yes. Now, look, I'm just going to say it. I believe Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian asset. Whether she's a knowing agent or just a useful idiot, that's a distinction for academics and someone else, which I am not. The result, though, is the same. She consumes their media, she echoes their narratives, she defends their puppet dictators, and then she blames NATO for the wars. And now, this is the director of national intelligence in our country. She prepares the president's daily briefing. Our allies, the Brits, the Israelis, the Australians, are all staring at their phones right now, wondering if sharing intelligence with us is effectively BCCing the Kremlin. Hillary saw it. 100 intelligence pros warned us. Senator Tammy Duckworth called her compromised. They weren't being partisan, they were just being observant. And Tulsi Gabbard is exactly who she appears to be. And she's now in charge of all of our secrets. So sleep tight on that one. But let's take a breath and talk about what this is actually doing to the intelligence community. Assuming that we can all look past the neon lit political circus for just 5 fucking minutes. The director of national intelligence is supposed to wrangle 18 different agencies, right? We're talking CIA, NSA, FBI, DIA, and a handful of acronyms so secret that they probably don't even tell each other what they do. The DNI is the designated adult in the room whose job it is to make sure everyone plays nicely together, that they share their toys. And then she gives the president unbiased intelligence. Unbiased. I know in this political climate, especially in this administration, that doesn't sound like a real word, but I promise it is. Look it up. Unbiased. The whole point of spending billions on spies and satellites is decision makers get actual facts, not just a yes man echo chamber. When the president asks about Iran's nukes or China's military, the answer is supposed to be based on reality, not whatever mood the president woke up in. That's why we have a firewall between intelligence and politics. Or at least we did before Tulsi decided to use it for kindling. And what Gabbard is doing, playing guest liaison at FBI raids and putting Trump on speakerphone like she's hosting a podcast, isn't just a breach of protocol. It's a total surrender of the intelligence mission to the president's personal brand. And she's already learned the hard way how this game works. Remember when she was frozen out of Iran briefings earlier this year because she wasn't on message enough? Well, it turns out in this administration, if you don't say exactly what the boss wants to hear, your security clearance is basically a decorative coaster. She's only useful when she's acting as a political instrument. And here's the thing, this isn't just about her. It's a giant blinking neon sign to every analyst and officer. The message is loud and clear. Objectivity, boring. Facts, optional. Blind loyalty, ticket to promotion. And this is exactly how you manufacture a massive intelligence failure. When you create an environment where everyone is too terrified to tell the emperor that he's not wearing any clothes, you end up in an information bubble made of sycophancy. But hey, who has time to worry about global stability or, objective analysis when the DNI is busy doing ride alongs to election offices and losing whistleblower complaints? I mean, clearly she has her priorities straight. And I don't know. I honestly, at this point, because side note, I solely did true crime for so long, and I do consider what I'm doing now true crime, except I'm just letting my own political flag fly. But can you imagine, just as an American, right? The person who's in charge of all of these agencies that are supposed to keep us safe. And they're not out there doing that at the moment. At least the head of it isn't. We're directing time and resources to an election that happened over 5 years ago. And we'll get to that in a moment. But let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Because honestly, thinking Tulsi Gabbard is a one-off scenario is so adorable, so cute. It's part of a pattern. I mean, it's basically a monogram tracksuit at this point. Throughout this administration, we've watched the systematic glow up of federal law enforcement into the president's personal concierge service. And it's been a busy season, y'all. The Justice Department dropping cases against Trump's buddies like they're hot coals. The FBI getting pointed at political rivals like a laser pointer for a really pissed off cat. Inspectors General getting fired the second they show a hint of backbone. And then whistleblowers being treated with the kind of hospitality usually reserved for Victorian era traitors. The Fulton County raid, yeah, that's just the high budget season finale. It's this show has been running across our entire federal government for a bit now. And the chef's kiss of the whole thing is that they're doing it while wearing a good government costume. Gabbard claims she's protecting election integrity. And she's saying that shit with a straight face. I mean, borderline deserving of an Emmy. The DOJ says it's pursuing fraud. They're wrapping authoritarian power grabs in the kind of civic duty rhetoric that would make a high school debate coach weep. And let's pause for another reality check. I mean, I know it's a buzzkill, and I'm sorry. I love you. It'll be okay. I'm going to hold your hand while I say this. In this context, election integrity is a fan fiction trope. Georgia certified those 2020 results. There was no fraud. That wasn't a liberal media take. That was the opinion of Georgia's own Republicans, the courts, Trump's own AG Bill Barr. Remember him? Also, the cybersecurity nerds at DHS. So when the FBI raids an elections office in 2026 to investigate the 2020 election, they aren't protecting anything. They're just manufacturing a prequel to justify a conspiracy theory that's already been debunked more times than a flat earth documentary. It's not law enforcement. It's propaganda with a badge. It's the use of state power as performance art for an audience of one, and we all know who the one is. And because this week wasn't already giving off enough, end of the world, end of the republic vibes, let's talk about the president's latest casual suggestion earlier today, the nationalizing of our elections. Yeah, you heard that right. The man who spent the last 6 years screaming about states' rights and local control suddenly decided that the 10th Amendment is just completely out of date. So 2020. Now he wants the federal government to swoop in and take over the whole show. Why? Because according to him, the states, especially the ones that don't produce the correct numbers or, that he doesn't win, simply can't be trusted with those pesky little things called ballots. It's the ultimate, if you can't beat them, buy the stadium and fire the ref type of move, He's calling for a complete federal takeover of election administration just in time for the 2026 midterms. And he's wrapping it in his usual word salad of fraud and security. It's a bold strategy. solve the problem of elections by making sure the only people counting the votes are the ones who already work directly for him. I'm sure the small government crowd will be out in the streets protesting, and nope, nope. But don't take my word for it. Let's listen to the man himself explain this totally not autocratic plan. Here's a clip from an interview he gave earlier today.
These people were brought to our country to vote, and they vote illegally. And amazing that the Republicans aren't tougher on it. The Republicans should say, we want to take over. We should take over the voting in at least 15 places. The Republicans ought to nationalize the voting. And we have states that are so crooked, and they're counting votes. We have states that I won that show I didn't win. Now you're going to see something in Georgia where they were able to get with a court order.
Isn't that absolutely insane? And again, please, for those of you still supporting this man, please pull your head out of your anus and look what is going on. So where does this leave us? And look, I know I try to be positive. I do my best, to try to be positive or leave on a positive note in some way. And if you're expecting a neat little live, laugh, love bow or inspirational quote to wrap up this episode, I don't have one. I don't have a call to action for you because frankly, A, I'm not a life coach. God, I'd be the worst one ever. But B, I don't know where we go from here. What I can tell you is that we're watching the slow motion car crash of American institutions. Our intelligence community, which is theoretically supposed to be hunting actual foreign threats, has now been rebranded as a personalized vibe check squad. All, for Trump's own grudges. We have a DNI who should be worried about Russian hackers, but is instead busy playing special guest star at FBI raids to help validate the president's latest fever dreams. Tulsi Gabbard did the math. At some point, she realized that principled non-interventionist doesn't really pay as well as Trump's favorite accessory at the moment. She took every single one of those lofty democratic ideals that she used to tweet about. I loved her back in the day. Civil liberties, anti-interventionism, oversight. And she traded all of that in for a MAGA hat and a seat at the big kids table. She didn't just join the machine, she became the fucking grease. And now she's the boss of 18 intelligence agencies. She's literally sitting on whistleblower complaints about herself. I mean, immaculate filing, right? She's putting the president on speakerphone during raids like it's a middle school conference call. She's weaponizing election security to fix a 5-year-old hurt Fifi. She looked at the most terrifyingly powerful surveillance apparatus ever built and thought, how can I use this to make sure that Donald Trump feels better about 2020? This isn't just a character arc, although she's definitely in her villain era. It's a grift. That's all that Tulsi Gabbard is. That's who she is. She's a grifter. The old Tulsi is dead and buried under a pile of Mar-a-Lago NDAs. And we, the people, we're just here. We're just chilling. We're just doing our best trying to wrap our minds around this insanity that is now percolating on a daily basis in this country. And it's absolutely wild. But I just really wanted to get an episode out on Tulsi Gabbard today, guys. This is the story that you need to watch because we are approaching midterms rapidly. And this is now happening. And then Trump coming up with nationalizing the elections. Like, do you see where this is headed? Do you see where it's headed? All Trump has to do is say, nope, in any swing states, anything that's purple, Minnesota, Georgia, the ones that could really swing either way. Trump deciding to nationalize it, take the state, the local Republican parties, whoever. Goddamn sure they're going to be his employees. That is for certain. To ensure that he or the Republicans win every single election from here on out. That is a very good possibility in the direction in which we are headed. But that's it for today, guys. I'm Robin. If you're pissed like I am, congratulations on being alive and having a pulse and a working set of ears. I wish I had more useful suggestions here, but all I know is that everyone's banking on you and me that we're too tired and cynical to speak out or do anything about it. It's the entire business model, essentially. But let's try not to be too predictable for once. I know it's hard, and I know we all have a lot going on, but every single day when I wake up and I pick up my phone, go through my favorite Substacks and all of that, and read the update from between when I fell asleep and woke up, and it's just terrifying on the daily. Absolutely terrifying. But that's it for today, guys. If you like the show or you want to follow, listen to some more, you can do so on Instagram at We Saw the Devil Podcast, Facebook, We Saw the Devil, Twitter, We Saw the Devil, Patreon, We Saw the Devil, website, We Saw the Devil. Are you seeing a theme here? And if you want to follow me personally on Instagram, you can do so at Robin_WSTD. There will definitely be more episodes coming out this week, guys. It is a rapid news cycle right now, and it's the politics junkie in me and current events junkie is relishing this, but it's also really unfortunate that I also live and have to deal with the consequences of these stories on a daily basis. But I digress. But anyway, I'll see you guys with the next big story because it's going to keep coming. In the meantime, take care of yourselves, take media breaks as needed, and we will get through this. Until next time.